back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions for Week 12. Last week, I went 21-10, which brings my total season record to 183-81. And with one more week left, I think the last week is called Rivalry Week. I do believe that there's a lot of schools this week that are pretty much in wind down mode. Like there's several SEC teams that are taking on no-name colleges. So I feel like this week is a bit of a slower week, but I still feel like there's a lot more that's going to happen than you think. But before we get into these predictions, we're not going to do Michigan State at Indiana or Oregon at Arizona State. And also, I want to apologize to Arizona State for excluding y'all last week and putting you in the exclusion list, and y'all won. Good for you. And we're going to start off with Thursday night football, where we have the Boston College Eagles taking on the Pitt Panthers. When will I learn not to trust Pitt? Last week, I picked them to beat Syracuse, and they do what they do best, lose. Boston College, on the other hand, they're coming off a very tough loss over Virginia Tech, at home at that. So at this game, I am going to take Boston College to rebound this week, but I will not be surprised if Pitt somehow toys with me with this game. Then we have a very important Pac-12 matchup for two of these schools. We have the Colorado Buffaloes traveling to Washington State to take on the Cougars. Buffaloes, they cannot lose another game. If they lose, they're out of bowl play. And for Washington State, it's pretty much the same thing. One of these schools are going to have to, perhaps both, going to have to find ways to win games. And Washington State, they've been on a downward spiral after their win over Oregon State. So with this game, I'm a bit torn, but I'm going to go with Colorado to win. Because at least they know how to put up a fight. And now we're on to the Saturday games. And again, I'm going to try and go swiftly as possible with this. We have the Purdue Boilermakers taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern beat Wisconsin last week. And Purdue, they actually got a surprising win last week over, I can't recall who they beat last week. It'll probably come to me later on. But I'm going to take Northwestern to win, because this school has actually been surprising me on how much they've been winning. Keep it up. Then we have Louisville taking on the Miami Hurricanes. And for Louisville, if they win this game, they'll be going to Charlotte to take on Florida State for the ACC title. If you recall, it's now no longer divisions in the ACC. Miami lost to their rivals Florida State. And Tyler Van Dyke, he came off the bench towards the end. He's no longer the starter. Injuries have been hobbling his career. I'm going to take Louisville to win. I do believe they're the better team. They're better coached, at least. Then we have the Michigan Wolverines taking on the Maryland Terrapins. Maryland ended their losing streak against Nebraska to get to bowl eligible. Michigan won its first big boy game of the year by beating Penn State. Now, I do believe that this game is going to be a trap game for Michigan. Coming off a big win over Penn State. And then they're going on the road to Maryland. And then the next week, we got the big game, which is obviously my game of the week for next week. Y'all already know what it is. So, I do think Michigan will get off to a very, very slow start. But they will get it together. I think they're going to get the win here. Because I think Maryland struggles with bigger competition. Not as much as Penn State does, but that's another conversation. Then we have Oklahoma taking on BYU, with Oklahoma bouncing back over West Virginia and BYU losing to Iowa State. I am going to take Oklahoma to win this game. Then we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Rutgers got shut out by Iowa last week. Penn State lost another big boy game to Michigan, and it cost their offensive coordinator their job. I am going to take Penn State to rebound this week. Rutgers, they're already bowl eligible. And Penn State, At this point, they just got to play for a New Year's Six. Cincinnati Bearcats and West Virginia Mountaineers. Cincinnati won its first ever Big 12 game last week over Houston, while West Virginia lost to Oklahoma. West Virginia, I do believe, is the better team. I'm going to take them over Cincinnati. Then we have a pretty good matchup in the Pac-12. The Utah Utes taking on the Arizona Wildcats. Where Utah, they coming off a tough loss on the road to Washington. I think that might have put it in. Well, some things going to have to happen. But as for them going to a Pac-12 title game, that's in serious jeopardy. And meanwhile, for Arizona, they have another come from behind win over Colorado. And that school's been getting it done. Kudos to them. I'm very torn on who to pick on this one. But I'm going to give... I was going to go with Utah, but I'm actually going to go with Arizona in this one. Because they're like the surprise... They're pretty much the surprise team in college football. Given where this program was 2 years ago. From finding players in the streets to fill the team to now, they're 7-3. Keep it up, Arizona. Then we have what would have been a good basketball matchup. The Duke Blue Devils taking on the Virginia Cavaliers. Duke coming off a very, 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 very tough loss over North Carolina, and I'm not complaining about that. And the Virginia Cavaliers, listen, they're playing competitive football. I know they got 2 wins this year, but they've been in pretty much, ever since they beat North Carolina, they've been in almost every game they played. Now, do I think they're going to win this game? Probably not. I am going to take the Duke Blue Devils, but Virginia, I do think they're going to give it a fight. I expect this one to be closer than what the people think. Then we have Wake Forest taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame had a bye week. Wake Forest lost to NC State, and this is Sam Hartman's revenge game. I'm taking Notre Dame to roll the dog over Wake Forest, and sadly for Wake Forest, if they lose this game, no bowl game for them. And it'll be the first time since 2015 that they won't be going bowling. That's surprising. Then we have a game that was intended to be my game of the week. Georgia taking on Tennessee. But the reason why I chose not to go with this game for game of the week was because Tennessee got pantsed against Missouri. And Georgia, they overcame a bit of a slow start against Ole Miss before walking the dog on them. I think Georgia right now, they're almost at peak form. Keyword, almost. I think they're going to get the win over Tennessee. Finish the SEC play undefeated. And pretty much they'll have to prepare for Alabama in the SEC title. Follow that, we have North Carolina taking on Clemson. Carolina won a huge game over their in-state hated rivals, the Duke Blue Devils. Honestly, I don't know how they won that game. Ref ball. And Clemson got a win over Georgia Tech, and they look like they're back to normal. I think this game is going to be very high scoring, but I am going to give the slight edge to Clemson to win this game. They're at home, and knowing Carolina, they love teasing with failure. And you saw that with, they like to mess with fire, and I hope, and they do get burned a lot. But anyway, I am going to take Clemson to win this game, slightly. Next, we have NC State taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Virginia Tech got a huge road win over Boston College. Good for them. NC State got a huge road win over Wake Forest. And they look like a totally different team from where they were week 1. I think this game, I am going to take NC State to win, because I trust them on defense a little more than I trust the Hokies. Next, we have Baylor taking on TCU. Given where these programs were about a year or 2 ago, I wouldn't expect either team to be down the way they are. Because Baylor's out of bowl play. TCU, I think they need like another win or so. They might be already there. But I am going to take TCU to win. They are at home. And that's the safest pick to go. Next we have is the Fighting Illini taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa had their best win of the season. Granted, it was a 22-0 shutout win over Rutgers, but hey, they look confident. And for some reason, this will be, and the way things looking, this will be the school to represent the Big Ten in that Big Ten championship game. I know, I'm just as shocked as y'all are, given the turmoil that program's having. Meanwhile, Illinois, I can't really recall what they did last week. I think were they the team that lost to Purdue? Might have been, but anyway, I am taking the Iowa Hawkeyes to win a very low scoring game. It might be 10-3, but yeah, I'm going to take Iowa. Then we have the UCLA Bruins taking on the USC Trojans. This will be the final game played by Caleb Williams. I am expecting him not to play in the bowl game. And this will also be the final Pac-12 iteration of this rivalry, as both schools will be moving to the Big Ten. UCLA had a tough loss to Arizona State. And USC, they put up a fight. They put up an okay battle with Oregon, but again, it was just not enough. But I guess them holding Oregon under 40 points is kind of a win for them, I guess. But I am going to take, I think Caleb Williams, he's going to put it all on the field. He's going to put it all on the field. This is his final game. I'm expecting USC to win. And if you don't know why this is his final game, because USC has a bye week next week. Why they have a week 13 bye, I don't know. That's how they did their schedule. Then we have the Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the Houston Cougars. What happened to Oklahoma State? They were pretty much, if they would have won out, they would have been in prime position to play possibly Texas in the Big 12 title game. But they laid an egg against UCF. Granted, Mother Nature did have something to do with that. But 45-3, man. Meanwhile, Houston lost to Cincinnati in a game that they kind of needed to keep their bowl hopes alive. But now that's kind of in life support. As for me, I am taking Oklahoma State to rebound on the road. I just trust them a little more than I trust Houston. Then we have the Minnesota Golden Gophers taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. My apologies. The number one ranked the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's better. Ohio State easily took care of Michigan State. Minnesota, they lost. Wait, they were the school that lost to Purdue. I mean, I know my mind is going crazy. But I think Ohio State, this is another game I expected a bit of a trap game a bit, because they could be looking ahead to next week. But I am still taking Ohio State to win, because that defense is super good. Then we have the UCF Scarlet Knights taking on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Texas Tech, they had a big road win. I think they won last week. UCF, they dominated Oklahoma State in the rain. I'm going to take Texas Tech to win at home over UCF. I told everyone about UCF. They're better than what their record indicates. Then we have the band is on the field rivalry. The California Bears taking on the Stanford Cardinals. And Cal, they picked up a season-saving win over Washington State, while Stanford, okay, they did lose. Okay, they lost last week, and now they're out of bowl play. I think this one can go in any direction, but because Cal's still fighting for bowl eligibility and Stanford's not, I am going to take the Bears to win. Then we have the Battle of Kansas. Kansas State Wildcats taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. The Jayhawks, they suffered a tough home loss to Texas Tech. And Kansas State, they had an easy home win over Baylor. Now, Kansas State, if I'm correct, they've won this rivalry like, I don't know, 8 or 9 straight years. Do I see it making it to 10? Yes. I'm going to take Kansas State to win, but I won't be surprised if Kansas wins. Then we have Nebraska taking on Wisconsin. Wisconsin, that school I feel like that school is falling apart at the wrong time of the season. I think they did have their quarterback get hurt, so that's part of the reason. And Nebraska, they suffered a home loss to Maryland. This is a game I think could go in any direction. I think Wisconsin will jump around and get the W here, and that will probably put them in bowl play. Then we have the Florida Gators taking on the Missouri Tigers. Missouri, they creamed Tennessee last week. And Florida, well, they hung in there with LSU, but Jaden Daniels was just too much for them to handle. I think for this game, yeah, Missouri, they're like the third or fourth best team in the SEC this year, and I think it will show against the Florida Gators. Then we have the Kentucky Wildcats taking on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Kentucky suffered a tough home loss to Alabama. Let's be real, Bama was the better team. And South Carolina easily took care of Vanderbilt. And they need 2 more wins to become bowl eligible. I think this game, this one might be one of my few upset. I won't know if I'll call this an upset, but I'm going to go ahead and take South Carolina to win this one. Follow that, we have the Syracuse Orange taking on Georgia Tech. This is a huge matchup in the SEC. Bigger than you think. Both teams sit at 5-5. Whoever wins this game will become bowl eligible. Well, for Syracuse, if they lose this game, there's a chance they could get it next week. Georgia Tech, they have to win this game because guess who's coming to town next week? Yes, their in-state rivals, Georgia, will be coming to town. And because they're aware that Georgia's coming to town and they have to win this game, I'm going to take the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets to win. Then we have Texas taking on Iowa State. Texas, they played alright against TCU until their running back Brooks torn his ACL and now he's lost for the season. Iowa State, they took care of business on the road against BYU. I think this game is going to be this game might surprise a lot of people. I know the safe pick is to take Texas, which I'm going to do, but I will not be surprised if Iowa State pulls off the upset. I will not. And then we have the game of the week. The Washington State Huskies taking on the Oregon State Beavers. Washington last week, they had a big win over Utah. It wasn't an easy one, but they got the job done. And if you recall, at this point of the season, it's not how you win, it's did you win. Meanwhile, Oregon State, they were the team that beat up on Stanford, and basically they took care of business. Oregon State, these last 2 weeks, they got 2 of their biggest weeks of the entire season. If you don't know, next week, Oregon State got Oregon next week. So, and now they're taking on another Pac-12 heavyweight. They could possibly take down 2 birds with 1 stone with this one game. I know the consensus for me to take on is to pick Washington, but game day is going to be there. Oregon State's going to be hyped. I'm going to go with the upset. I really think Oregon State's going to get it done over Washington. So give me the Beavers to win this game. Those are my Week 12 picks. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.